Dear devotees, please accept my most humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining Maharaj's daily call. Today, we will be hearing on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse number 33. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are so grateful for your mercy, Guru Maharaj. Please take the call. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you increase the size of the letters? It's a little too small here.
Hare Krishna Mataji, can you zoom in a little bit?
Okay. Taduragatam sauri karavam viharaturan sani vardya dritham snigdhan prayatswa nagarim priyai. Translation. Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. They were well overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwarka with his dear companions. Text 34. And 35. Guru Jangala Pachalam Surdasenam Swayam Munan Brahmavartam Kuru Kshetram Machyan Sarvaswatam Mata Marudanvam Matikramya Saurabhirayo Paran Anartan Bhargavo Bhagach Trantavaho Manang Vibhuhu. Translation. O Sanika, the Lord then proceeded towards Urujangala, Panchala, Surasena, then on the bank of the river Jamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Sarasvata, and the province of the desert and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Sauriva and Abira provinces, then west of these reached Dwarka at last. Report. The provinces passed over by the Lord in those days were differently named, but the direction given is sufficient to indicate that he traveled through Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat, and at last reached his home province at Dwarka. We do not gain any profit simply by researching the analogous provinces of those days up to now, but it appears that the deserts of Rajasthan and the provinces of scanty water like Madhya Pradesh were present even 5,000 years ago. The theory of soil experts that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of Bhagavatam. We may leave the matter for expert geologists to research because the changing universe has different phases of geological development. We are satisfied that the Lord has now reached his own province, Dwarkadam, from the Kuru provinces. Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny the existence of Kurukshetra. Next verse. Okay. Tatra tatra ha tatra yai hari pradyudatara ayam vijay disam paschad gavisto gam gatastata. On his journey through these provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, all the places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. Purport. It is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on the journey. There is certain philosophical speculation that even the Lord is under the obligation of true action, but actually, can't see it. Move the thing once, but actually, move it. Just move it once.
She moved it in Guru Maharaj.
Just move it up one notch. That's all. Can't see the words but actually this is not the case. He doesn't, oops, now we lost it. Come back down. Okay. He does not depend on the actions of any good or bad work. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. But when he descends to the earth, he acts for the protection of the devotees and for the annihilation of the impious non-devotees. Although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything so that others may follow. That is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly himself and teach the same to others. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teachings. He is himself the awarder of fruit of results. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scriptures in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. But in the advanced stage, when one understands the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. That is not possible. The Lord in human society does whatever is the duty of everyone. But sometimes he does something extraordinary and not to be imitated by the living beings. His acts of evening prayer are stated herein must be followed by the living being. But it's not possible to follow his mountain lifting or dancing with the gopis. One cannot imitate the sun, which can exhaust water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts will put us into an endless difficulty. Therefore, in all actions, the expert guide, the spiritual master, who is a manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted, and then the path of progress will be assured. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. Umagyantimidandasya ginarjana salakaya Daksun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Itinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya Sakani Panchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there's a story where there is one one veterinarian who was training his disciple, his student, in the activities of taking care of animals. So one horse came in and it had a very big lump in its throat. And so the veterinarian took a rubber hammer and started beating on the lump. And finally the lump was gone and the horse was fine. So the disciple, the student, was observing his teacher. After he became a veterinarian himself, he had a similar situation where a horse came in with a lump in his throat. So immediately he took a hammer and started beating the horse, and the horse started going wild. And the horse was going crazy, and finally his guru was there, and he stopped him. He said, "What are you doing? You're trying to kill the horse?" He said, "No, I'm doing the same thing I saw you do. I mean, there was a lump in the throat. I was beating it." He said, "You fool. That horse that I was working on had a watermelon in his throat, and I was just breaking up the watermelon so he could swallow it." So here's an example of imitation. How when one sees something and they want to do the same thing. But they don't know the motivation behind the activity, nor do they know what is the reason for the activity. So they go ahead and sometimes copy. Imitation is cheap. Therefore, it says Anusharan and Nuskaran. Anusharan means to follow in the footsteps. In other words, to learn from those who are superior how to execute devotional service and carefully follow their instructions. Anuscharan means to simply do what they do and not understanding more than that. So this is very fashionable. Therefore, it says here, Yam yam bapis param bhavam tattva ante ekalim tam tam ivaita konte sadata bhava bhavitaha.
Guru Maharaj, sorry to interrupt you, but would you lower your screen just a little bit because we're just able to see half of your face?
I can't see anything. But I'm looking at the purple. Like this way or the other way?
The
This
other
way?
way, Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
Like this?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I can't see anything but the screen of the translation. All right. So what is in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes that statement that whatever a great man does, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary actions, all the world pursues. So a great man will many times follow the ordinary course of events and needed to teach others on how they should also follow. But then again, there are certain activities that a great person will do that others cannot do and should not do. So here we have the example. It said that the Lord was traveling through his various provinces, and he would suspend his journey to perform evening rites. In other words, he was offering prayers in the evening. And the Lord doesn't have to do that. Who is he praying to? Himself? He is the source or the object of everyone's prayers. But here, he's teaching by example that we should follow our regulated duties in the activities of devotional service. And therefore, you'll see great souls, they also do that simply to teach others. But then here the example is given in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are activities that others cannot follow and should not follow, and if they do, they will be destroyed, such as dancing with young girls in the dead of night and calling it following over downhill. Prabhupada would use the example that Lord Shiva would smoke ganja. And so the hippies and those who are similar in my mentality like to smoke various types of intoxicating substances and think that they are imitating and following Lord Shiva. But then again, when these persons are approached, well, Lord Shiva also drank an ocean of poison. So if you want to go ahead and follow Lord Shiva, then follow him in that way. Or Krishna also lifted Govardhan Hill. Can you lift Govardhan? No, obviously not. But there is a pretentious group of others who like to imitate. And this goes on a lot. Sometimes a person will imitate all of the characteristics of a great soul in order to attract attention to themselves, in order to make others feel that they are very advanced in their devotional life or very advanced in knowledge. We have the example when Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur was personally present on the planet. He was a magistrate for the British Raj, such a well-respected and highly competent magistrate that he was honored by the British Raj and given special privileges that no other magistrate was able to attain. There was one personality who had appeared at that time. His name was Bishikashena. Bishikashena claimed to be an incarnation of Mahavishnu who come to free the Indian subcontinent from the hands of the British. He was speaking, giving lectures to large groups of people about not following the British and organizing things against the British. But at the same time, in the evening time, he would go to the villages and gather some girls up and imitate Krishna's rasa dance. And so the British Raj were becoming quite disturbed by him, and also Bhakti Vinod Thakur could understand that he was just an imitation. So they chose Bhakti Vinod Thakur to restrict him or to, change him. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur approached Bishikashena. Bishikashena had long, very long matted hair. And sometimes there'd be electrical sparks coming from his hair. And people would think, oh, he must be the Supreme. Just look at that. And then, he would do this display of sparks coming out of his hair. And he had some other mystic powers also. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur very respectfully approached him and said, my dear Bishikashena, actually the Supreme Personality of God has appeared in a place called Jagannath Puri, and he is worshipped there. So I think you should go and take some time and worship the Supreme Lord who has appeared in Jagannath Puri as Lord Jagannath. Bishikashena responded in a very offensive way by saying, well, yes, that is me who has appeared in wood, and now I am appearing here in the flesh. When Bhakti Vinod Thakur heard him blaspheme Lord Jagannath, he used his power and called the British soldiers, and they arrested Bishikashena and put him in jail. As soon as that happened, Bishikashena started to use his mystic powers to cause problems to everyone. And he caused Bhakti Vinod Thakur, his wife, and all of his family members come down with a very high fever. Actually, the fever was so high that they were on the verge of death. His wife, Bhagavati Devi, started to plead with her husband, "We're all going to die, please let him go." Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so strong against pretentious personalities who claimed to be God or some incarnation of God, that he simply responded, "We should all die, but we will not allow that rascal any freedom." And so, after some time, one man who understood a little bit about Vishikasena came to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and said, "His power is in his hair." So taking that note, they called a bunch of soldiers and grabbed Vishikasena, held him down, and shaved him up. Gave him his first real haircut, gave him some initiation. And now he's in jail without his powers. And 3 days later, he died. So this is an example of how, there are many persons similar to that, even today. Without any remorse, we can say, without any regret, we can say that even today there are such persons who like to imitate other great personalities who are not qualified. These persons are simply pretentious and imitations. When Srila Prabhupada was here, many people knew he was such a great personality. So one time when Prabhupada was in his room in Vrindavan, one supposedly a spiritual person came in the room and started to act like he was experiencing ecstatic symptoms. He was crying out, and then he started to roll on the ground like he was in ecstasy. Prabhupada was with one of his disciples, so he said to the disciple, "Kick him." So the disciple went over there and kicked him on the order of his spiritual master. We don't kick anybody, but it said this was instruction given by His Divine Grace, so he did it. And the man just got up and ran out of the room. His show was over. So we see that there is a lot of this going on, especially India is a land of imitation, and a lot of these persons have come also to places in the Western world to display their trickery and their teachings in order to get many followers. There was one such person, he was from Pune. I won't mention his name, but he was doing the same thing. And he amassed a large amount of followers and wealth, where he had such wealth that he had 32 Rolls Royce, and many of the followers that were coming to him were quite wealthy and giving all their wealth to him. But then, like many of these so-called bogus gurus, they have relationships with their disciples. And so he was exposed in an illicit relationship. And then many of his disciples turned against him. And he lost. And then finally, he was found to be guilty of tax evasion while he was in the West. He was amassing large amounts of wealth and not claiming anything. And so the United States government took him and transported him, deported him back to India. And later on, he died. He was pretentious. I remember I was doing Sankirtan, and in the one newspaper in the United States called the USA Today, which is kind of like a United States newspaper, he was pictured on the front page. He had just given a public lecture somewhere in the US. And he made a statement which was quoted in the caption along with his picture on the front page of this newspaper. And it said that, he said that the greatest illusion to mankind is the idea of God. So when I remember seeing that, I was quite upset and quite angry to see such a personality blaspheming the Supreme Lord being publicized in the front page of a major newspaper. But ultimately, such persons are destroyed in time. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one such person that made it. And Srila Prabhupada also, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine. Sunyavadi and Nirvishesha. Nirvishesha means people who believe that the absolute truth is simply zero, void. There is nothing. That when you come to the unmanifested void of existence, then you have realized your nirvana, you have realized. When you come to nothingness, then you are self-realized. So they say that nothingness is a form of self-realization. It's done by these cheap tricks of meditation. And then you have Nirvisesa Sunyavadi, you have those who are impersonalist Mayavadis. Well, Prabhupada adopted that. Why was Prabhupada given? Actually, Prabhupada adopted that second part of his pranam mantra. Up until 1970, we only knew Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. We were chanting. And that was for the first 5 years when Prabhupada was here. But then there was this scandal in New Vrindavan where 4 very senior devotees started to make the propaganda that Srila Prabhupada is an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. He's not saying it, but we actually know that this is the factual truth, that he is Vishnu himself come. When Prabhupada was in Japan at the time, he got the word, and he immediately adopted that mantra, Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine. And he, at the same time, he sent word that these 4, they were 4 leading persons in the movement. They have to leave the temple and they can't stay anywhere in any temple. They can travel around and simply live and preach Krishna consciousness, but they can't stay in any temple. They can't stay in any of our centers. And they did it. And then they redeemed themselves and again came back to Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada made the point that worse than underestimating the spiritual master is to overestimate the spiritual master. Overestimate means to put him in a category which he does not belong. So a lot of times, just like the Mayavadis, they say that the spiritual master is Narayan. And they revert to each other, Om Namo Narayan. They call each other Narayan. And one who has achieved perfection according to their principles that they teach as actually the Supreme Lord. And therefore, one does not need a guru anymore. The guru is like a ladder. The ladder gets you to a high place, and then once you reach the high place, you don't need the ladder anymore. That's their philosophy. But we have an eternal relationship with our spiritual master, and when we go back to the spiritual world, we will again meet our spiritual master there, and we will also engage in service to that soul who became our spiritual master in the material world. So the relationship between guru and disciple is eternal, and it's based on the principle of service coming from the disciple and instructions and guidance given by the spiritual master. So here we see how Lord Krishna wants to keep pretentiousness and cheating away. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present, he would not tolerate anyone calling him the Supreme Lord. Although he was, he would block his ears and say, no, I am simply a disciple of the Supreme Lord. I am not the Supreme Lord. And he was very adamant to make sure that he was never referred to as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why did he do that? Although he was a Supreme Lord, because he was teaching from the position of a devotee, that a devotee or those practicing Krishna consciousness can never become the Supreme by the process of spiritual practice, which are taught by other forms of teachings. And you can become as good or even better than your guru, and you can actually become the Lord himself. You can become powerful. You can become. I remember when I was in Barcelona, Spain, for the World Parliament of Religions in the year 2004, we had Hindu night. And Hindu night was a night set apart for all of the Hindu groups that were coming for the World Parliament's programs. And so we all gathered, and the Mayavadis got there first and took over the stage and started to control the whole meeting. We got there a little bit afterwards, and then there were other groups. And I was with Bhakti, what was his name? Bhakti Sarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj, and both of us were the sannyasis there. And we were listening to all of this garbage coming out by these Mayavadis who were saying, you can become powerful, you can become great, you can control so many things. And they were just going on in their, their filthy vituperation. And I was getting so angry. Bhakti Srup Damodar remained quite calm. And then they asked him to speak, and he spoke on two verses in the Bhagavatam, which says that the purpose of austerity is to worship Vasudeva. The purpose of penance is to worship Vasudeva. The purpose of chanting mantras is to worship Vasudeva. The purpose of all activities that goes on one after another, culminates in the worship of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. So he spoke on that amidst all of the Mayavadis there. And I don't think they got it. But then after some time, we took the stage and we began kirtan. And there were many people there, hundreds, not hundreds, but maybe about 100, 150 people. And we began kirtan. And as soon as we began kirtan, all the Madhavayanis completely got up and left, because they think kirtan is just for some sentimentalists, that's all. And so, but what happened now that we had taken over with kirtan, all the people who were there, they coming around us and enjoying the kirtan, and we brought books and prasadam. And ultimately our preaching went on very successfully that night. So this was an example of having, sometimes you find yourself amidst such personalities. You have to use your intelligence not to follow them, and at the same time, keep Krishna consciousness foremost. But it's better to get out of that association, because what they say is poison. When you realize that all they say, it's all about you becoming great, you becoming God. Their conception of God is their own sadhana, which they practice, saying that by practicing this sadhana, you can become God. But how can God become? God is. God never loses his position as being God. And becoming God is foolish, because God is already there. And God is one. There are not many gods. Those who claim to be God are simply cheaters. As when Prabhupada, when he first began his Krishna consciousness movement, he used to say, G-O-D, D-O-G. Anyone who said he's God, he's dog. Prabhupada was very strong, even at the very beginning of his movement back in the 1960s, in the early days of 26 Second Ave. Why? Because he knew Western society is filled with impersonalism and voidism. And all of the spiritual movements that were going on at that time, especially at that time during the 60s and the 70s later, were simply centered around Mayavadism, personalism, voidism, and all kinds of speculations based on people's concocted ideas of what spiritual life is. So those who come to Krishna consciousness must study these books very carefully and understand the philosophy in relationship to what goes on as something similar, but actually it's quite the opposite. Because we might be faced with certain pretentious philosophical teachings, and if we're not clear, we may also go along with that or even support it. So yeah, therefore Srila Prabhupada and he said, the greatest service one can perform is to destroy Mayavadism and impersonalism and reestablish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, free from all other ideas. So our movement is not simply about, chanting and doing service. It's also about explaining carefully to those who don't know what is the actual teachings. And you'll find that there's a lot of that going on in the outside. There's more pretense and artificiality going on in spiritual life than the real thing. Very few people actually worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion. People take various forms of practices in order to raise themselves to a position in some kind of spiritual progress in order to get some name, fame, powers, or simply to become free from material suffering. But none of these are the goals or the authorizations that are given in the Shastras as true spirituality. True spirituality means to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada used that statement, Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's mentioned it 8,000 times. It was we actually did a survey that was mentioned 8,000 times. Prabhupada explained that the Supreme Lord is a personality and his name is Krishna. And he even challenged us many times to say, do you actually believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Just to see how much we understood of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So, yeah. So we see here from this verse, a series of verses, how the Lord traveled through different provinces and performed daily rituals that are done by those who practice spiritual life in order to teach by example what is the standard one should follow as a devotee of the Lord. Okay. Hare Krishna.
This is such a nice exposition, such a nice explanation of imitation philosophies with a very clear understanding of what is the real thing and how rare it is that we have been given this good fortune to receive pure knowledge from the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. So much to absorb, to think about, to assimilate, and then to value and then share that with others. Dear Guru Maharaj, we are so grateful for this mercy. Dear devotees, I humbly request you to come forward and ask any questions that you desire. It would be very nice to hear whether you have experienced this kind of imitation philosophy before coming to Krishna consciousness, so that we understand how rare this is, what we have been given, and clarify any further doubts that you may have. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
And turn on your cameras.
Yes, please do turn on your video cameras. We have so many devotees online. Please do feel free to ask questions. Don't feel shy. This is the time to clarify any doubts and become very strong in our own practice so that we can face any challenge, because we are now to take forward this movement. So it's really a big responsibility. We can't afford to shirk this responsibility. So please feel free to ask questions.
Parijata. Parijata, yes. I'm sure you
Hare
had some
Krishna.
experience. I know you have some experience about what we were talking about today. I want to make some comments in this regard.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, all glories to Temple devotees. Yes, Maharaj, I was listening very carefully, and I'm so grateful that you spoke all these things at length and your experiences about these things as well. I am aware of this individual who owned 93 Rolls Royce and was kicked out of the country by United States government. So he still has people, and I had my own share of experiences with these people. I was trying to school them about the real spirituality a couple of years ago, and they also carry forward his ways and his weird techniques of meditation, and some forbidden words are there, I will not say. So so they kind of I'm so sorry, Maharaj, 1 second. Okay. So India, no doubt, we are progressing, we are moving forward, we are getting educated, but spiritually, I don't think things are going anywhere, because we still have a lot of people in South India who claim to be the avatars of Lord Kalki. There are dozen people. I can send the links also. You can check. Everyone can check. Different people claiming to be the Kalki avatar. And these are the charlatans. These are black magicians. These are magicians who show tricks to people. And people who are like not clear in their head or who are weak mentally, they fall for these things. Or those people who are looking for answers, those who are suffering, they get fooled by these individuals. And it has been my fight for many, many years to save people from such individuals. And also where I am right now in the district in Gurdaspur in Punjab, we have such things happening day in and day out. We have a small congregation of people, but then we have taken up a task to save people, to safeguard them from such individuals. There are Hindu people who claim to be avatar of this and this Devi, and there are other Hindu groups who claim to be the avatar of Lord Shiva, and then there are avatars of Lord Jesus, and there are avatars of Lord this and that, and there are so many groups, and God knows how much money is involved in this, and it breaks my heart because people are so far, far away from the real spirituality, from the real path of enlightenment, and we try hard every day, Maharaj. And it frustrates me. I get so upset to see people going and falling for these tricks. And I don't know, I was listening to the lectures, and I was just thinking in my head, oh my God, this is a big responsibility. There are so many souls who have fallen prey to these individuals, and we need to save them. And to educate people, we have scriptures, but problem is, people tell us, oh, there are so many scriptures, there are so many books, which one to follow? Then we tell them, you follow Bhagavad Gita, then get into Srimad Bhagavatam for the post-graduation study. And especially those who are, following some Mayavadi guru, or those who are following some kind of, Buddhist path, they do more damage. And also, you said that you mentioned that people try to imitate Lord Shiva by smoking pot. Yes, that happens a lot. It happens a lot in India. And me, every day, I fight with such individuals, and I say, why don't you even drink poison? Lord Shiva gulped the poison. He said, no, we cannot do that. We don't have his type of body. So they always have an explanation. And the people then try to give excuses. Oh, Lord Krishna had so many wives. Muslims do that to us. Muslims keep asking us, oh, you have problem with us maintaining 5 wives. why did your God have 16,000 plus wives? So it's like allowed in your religion. And then they give comments on Devi Draupadi. The similar things. Oh, polyandry is there. Why don't you marry 5 men? So these kind of things are happening. And I'm making a module in which I'm going to give some presentations really soon to people in the villages, not to fall for these things. There is an explanation behind everything that happened in our religious history, in our philosophy. And we have to do a lot of work, Maharaj. I really wish we had some kind of proper program for this to educate people, especially to address this issue. It's a big issue. It's a big thing. And it's really frustrating, Maharaj. I will request all the devotees, especially those who are in India, just educate people, save them, because it's okay to be an atheist. We can take care of an atheist. But those who have fallen for someone who claims to be God, they're worshiping that individual. They worship these individuals and they tell us to worship as well. And when we tell them, no, this is blasphemy. I mean, this is an individual who has some magical tricks. And then they call us, oh, you're possessed by Satan. Oh, you are a jealous individual. Oh, you have some agenda, that's why. Oh, you are on a wrong path. And these kind of things happen. So I get into tricky situations a lot of times, and things get really heated up here in India. So I'm currently working on it, Maharaj, and please bless me that I'm able to do something, because it's a big mess. It really is.
Yeah.
That's all.
Gather a few other sincere souls together and make
Yes,
vicious
Maharaj.
propaganda in this direction.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
And spread the holy name. When people get involved in chanting the holy name, they get a taste.
Yes.
That
Yes.
taste starts to attract them towards our teachings.
Yes,
Yeah.
Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
There's so much of that going on. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. This is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga says in the scriptures, it says that religion will be seen as irreligion, and irreligion will be seen as religion. This is the feature of this age of Kali.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. Your attempt to, Prabhupada will empower you to do more. Prabhupada was very strong about this. I mean, when Prabhupada didn't have his Bhagavad Gita at the beginning, he was using Ramakrishna's Bhagavad Gita. And then there's that one verse in the 9th chapter, Manmana Bhavavat Bhakto Mam Yaji Mam Namaskuru. And then there was a commentary on it. So Prabhupada was having that read. And then in the commentary, it said, it is not to Krishna that one should surrender, but it's the unmanifested, unborn aspect within Krishna. And then Prabhupada slammed his fist on the table. Everybody practically shook. He said, just see, what a rascal. Krishna is saying, surrender to me. And he's saying, don't surrender to Krishna. Surrender to some false idea. And so, Prabhupada had to face that a lot in his preaching.
So, Maharaj, I think in our Kshatriya Dharma within ISKCON, I think the Kshatriyas, those who are in that mode, need to take up this work too. We have to take it seriously. Those who are like, Kshatriya head, they also need to just kind of, take this thing into account and do something about it. That's my suggestion. I mean, all those devotees who are interested in this, I think it's our job to do that.
There's a plan going on right now, and I'm working with certain persons who are in that category too. There's one devotee, he wrote a whole book based on all of the statements made by Srila Prabhupada in Srimad Bhagavatam on Kshatriya Dharma. And he wants to set up this whole idea of Kshatriya Dharma throughout ISKCON. And when we get good leadership, then it's easy to somehow or other infiltrate and move people in the right direction. It's all based on having the proper leadership.
Thank you,
Okay.
Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Parijata.
Thank you, Parijat. Yes, Guru Maharaj, that verse which you quoted during the class, Yajyad Acharati Shreshtas, whatever a great man does, common men follow, whatever standards he set, the whole world pursues. That is so important for us to remember and then to try and help people understand the real philosophy. We have Namrata and we have Dhanvantari Prabhu. Namrata, we'll go with you first and then with Dhanvantari Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the holy lotus feet of yours, and all glories to the assembled devotees. So, Guru Maharaj, I wanted to share how I was so much strongly rooted with the Krishna factor. I mean, right from the childhood. So, in our family, we have I belong to a Vaishnava family, but you know my cousin Mansi Mataji, right? So
Right.
his father, he was he's my uncle. So he had a very, very strong belief, and he used to very strongly tell us that Krishna is only the Godhead. So we are in Gujarat and maybe in other parts of country also, especially in India, I see a lot of problem of demigod worship. It interferes a lot. So demigod worship, I think it is like equal issue like Mayavadis and impersonalists and the voidists as well. Demigod worship is so much. Maybe they are pious, but then around these people in our family, we used to have a very strong follower of this, and he used to, if we used to get diverted anywhere, then he used to take us back and give us philosophies regarding that. So maybe we have a lot of bifurcations in Krishna, in Vaishnavism, but he used to strongly get us back to the Krishna. So he is the only supreme Godhead, and you have to believe it. And that was like hit like a hammer. So I feel that there should be something like this in the society. At least one strong thing should be there. Maybe where the force is required, you have to put the force.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that is
And
what
the scriptures are full of statements illustrating the position of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's clear. Krishna says it, Arjuna says it. Many of the major scriptures illustrate and enunciate that there are many manifestations of the Supreme, but Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is a person. It's not that he adopts a personality when he comes to the material world, and before that he is some impersonal. He keeps his personality is his transcendental nature, and he manifests that personality in many of his appearances in this world in different forms. That's the main thing to understand, that Krishna is a person. When he's a supreme person, he is the source of all other personalities. Personality comes from personality. Just like you come from your mother and father, we also come from Krishna. We are persons. And Krishna is also a person. Okay, Dhanvantari.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, all glories to present devotees. So I opened a Facebook site maybe a year ago. I wanted to get closer to your lectures when you were in Ljubljana. But 6-7 months ago, I discovered that I can do some preaching on Facebook, because there are devotees there and some secular people. They live, there are different posts, like question, commentaries, or so. So I was doing some commentaries on through the Facebook, and I think I did good comments. Yeah, I wanted to the Mataji before Namrata. He was talking about Islam's and this and that. The similar thing we have here and with the Christianity, you know, they want to make Jesus God. That is not true. Among those Christians, only those from Jehovah Witness, they have, I can say, proper understanding. They know that there is a God, and they accept Jesus as a kind of a spiritual master. They have this distinction, similar like we have Krishna as a God and the spiritual master who leads us to come to God.
Mhm.
You know, I have so many things in the head. So many things that happens, and I think I have to.
There's other movements that pattern our philosophy, but they don't have a clear understanding of how that
Yes.
is. They can name things and also have the same arrangement, but they're not clear on how everything is coming in from the original source, Krishna, or the original source is God. But that's clearly mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, especially. I just finished reading the 11th canto, and Krishna really goes into it in the 11th canto, makes it really clear what is real religion and what is something that looks like real religion. So we need to read and also recite these different statements in order to illustrate that. That's why Prabhupada said that we should, in all of our classes, we should at least mention it one time, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and clarify that, just to keep that point foremost. But thank you,
Thank
David. Whatever you can do to somehow enlighten the innocent people, not misled by such persons, to do that is important.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for reminding us how seriously we must take this, and how seriously we need to remember that others are not in that fortunate position that we are in, and therefore it is our duty to give them this knowledge that we have so fortunately received from the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Yes, Sukavaha, please go ahead. Thank you, Dhanvantari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare,
Krishna.
please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees. I completely echoed the previous Parijata Mataji and Dhanvantari Prabhu saying the stuff. But sometimes I have come across the people who say that they are very intelligent and they are doing the propaganda that Jesus is much better than Krishna. The reason is, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying Arjun to fight, whereas Jesus sacrificed himself for the humanity. So, the argument becomes so heated up when they say such things, because it makes us so angry, saying that you don't understand the reason why Krishna is asking Arjun to fight. It was his duty to perform. And they said, oh, if your religion teaches the duty to fight as a duty, then how can you say that your religion is pure? And how can you say that your religion is beneficial to mankind? It is so annoying, Guru Maharaj, seriously. sometimes you feel, and then even Muslim devotees say that, then you blame us that, oh, when we fight for our religion, you tell us that, oh, that's wrong, and in your religion the fighting is everything is okay to do. So it's like, everything is okay for you guys to do, whereas anyone else does something is wrong. So bad.
Well, obviously, they just pattern one thing into another, not understanding the circumstances behind it. Krishna did everything to avoid that war, but there was no other recourse. When there was no other recourse, then Krishna used his devotee in order to reestablish religious principles. It's not that war was the initial program. Krishna came to Duryodhana and tried to plead with him that the Pandavas or Kshatriyas give them just 5 villages. He rejected everything Krishna said and said, I won't even give them enough land to put on a head of a pin. And then he got angry at Krishna and called his guards to arrest Krishna. That's what at that time showed his universal form, and all the guards were thrown back. They couldn't do anything. And Krishna left. And although Duryodhana saw Krishna in his universal form, he still opposed Krishna. He still opposed him. So everything was set that there was no other recourse but war. So. And that was Ayodhya. That was based on religious principles. If people go around killing other people because they don't follow their particular faith path, that's not defending their religion.
Exactly.
So they excuse that, oh, if you're not following our religion, then you're a heathen. You are, they use different names, that you're going to hell, and therefore you should be killed. But we don't espouse that thing. We accept all faith paths that are authorized as bona fide ways to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we don't go around killing other people because they don't follow the path of Krishna consciousness. So that's what they're making a comparison that has no similarities at all.
Exactly, Guru Maharaj. So annoying.
Yeah, because they're ignorant.
What
They
do you
don't
do?
know.
Because I just got into arguments so badly with them that it comes to the point that our relationship will be so bad. I can't hold it.
Well, if people are not really willing to hear, better to avoid that. And sometimes we get into discussions with people in order to protect other people who are there at the time, so they won't be misled. But otherwise, the people that we're arguing with, or it's just a waste of time. Because they're not intelligent. You can discuss things with an intelligent person and come to a reasonable conclusion. But if persons are not intelligent, they're just sentimental. They pick things here and there and they just throw it up as some kind of truth. And how can you talk about it? So Prabhupada, he didn't, wherever there was some decent discussion, Prabhupada presented it. When people were inimical, he used to avoid such persons. Because people have no philosophy. And they're always changing their philosophy anyway to suit whatever ideas that they want to propagate.
True. Very true, Maharaj.
What you do in order to become more effective is really quote scripture. And be able to back up everything you say by philosophical and scriptural teaching. Instead of just going, it's my opinion and your opinion. But I can also teach you or instruct you in a thinking way. If you really want to win an argument, don't say anything about what you believe in.
Mm.
Just simply listen to their garbage and tear it apart. That's one way of showing their foolishness. You don't even have to present your own ideas. You simply part their foolishness by showing how far off they are, and that's actually how you can dismantle any person's ideas. Just listen to their stuff and then look for the mistakes in it and show them their own mistakes. You don't have to say anything about what you believe in.
Okay.
That's an art.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, what we're hearing you say is that we must try to get really sound in the philosophy, and we must try to preach and get better at it and practice preaching so that we can become more effective. Is that correct?
Well, listen to, hear from your spiritual master, hear from Srila Prabhupada regularly.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you, Sukhabaha. Thank you, all of you. You're really contributing in such a remarkable way that all of us are getting so many different insights and getting so much realization about how best to proceed when we are faced, and we will be faced with such situations in the future where we may meet people who may not understand our philosophy correctly. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for clarifying so many different aspects of this very important topic and reiterating again and again, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 8,000 times mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. That's so significant for us. Thank you.
That's coming from Shastra. The Shastras are clear on that. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Some Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Vishwarpam Satchit Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Adi Devanam Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matat Sarvam Pravartante Tutvasa Mabante Bhajanti Mambura Bhava Samandikaha. All of these verses illustrate and enunciate and clarify that Krishna is the source of all. Yes, Savashita Hambradisani Vistom Matar Smita Gyanam Pohanam Shah Vedaishu Saham Mahava Eva Vedo Vedanta Krit Veda Vedeva Chaham. He says, I am the source of the Vedas, I am the knower of the Vedas, I am the compiler of the Vedas, and the Vedas are meant to know me. Even the Shrutis, both the Shrutis and the Smritis, emphasize or glorify Krishna as the supreme. He is the absolute truth. That's why that first verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, if you study that first verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, along with the purports, you'll know everything about what is personalism and what is impersonalism. Just that one verse from the first canto, first chapter, first verse. Janmad yasya yataha. That verse alone, just make a study of that verse. You'll have everything simply by that one verse. Okay.
Very, very wonderful explanations and clear directions, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. We are so grateful for the mercy. We are grateful for the association of devotees. All of you have presented so nicely. More power to Parijata as she tackles all those elements up there in Gurdaspur. We pray that more and more devotees join you and you have rousing Harinam there. And we pray that all of us come together and push on this wonderful this great gift that Srila Prabhupada has given us through the mercy of our Guru Maharaj, that we are receiving the absolute truth, the pure knowledge as it is. This is such a rare and valuable gift. And in this human form of life, everyone has a chance to reach perfection. So we are so grateful, Guru Maharaj, for your guidance, for your instructions. And we just pray that we can live up to this gift that has been given to us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srimati, tomorrow we will I will to give the class tomorrow. I have to travel tomorrow.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, Sukahava Mataji class tomorrow.
Okay, I should be back on Monday.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, sure. Thank you so much. Please accept my humble obeisance.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. When I come back, I have another topic that I want to present to the devotees. I think it's very interesting.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Obeisances to all everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Devi Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you to all of you. Now, Parijata, you have another warrior over there in Ljubljana. You can get her.
Yes,
So,